Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Happy Sunday, SMITE fans. You're watching day number 3 of week number 2 of season number 8 of the SMITE Pro League, of course sponsored by our friends over at Alienware. I always want to give shout-outs to our title sponsor this year in the SPL. That's Alienware. Make sure to go to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code SMITEAW and you can pick up some of the sweet gear that our pros are playing on with some discount codes based on your region. At Alienware on Twitter and Instagram as well. And then alienwarearena.com to join the growing global community that they're putting together. I'm not alone, though. Taco is with me throughout the day today to talk about some of the fun matchups we've got. Taco, it's been a lengthier weekend here in the SPL. A bunch of Game 3s, finally a 2-game set yesterday to round out the day. It's been a lot of fun, though, watching these pros figure out the new meta and the big update that we've seen here.
And between the new season meta and just the fact that we're now in Split 2, Dave, I think that that's the primary reason why you've been seeing so many of these sets actually reach that 3-game series, because these teams are going to start to recognize each other a little bit more so on the actual playing field. So just makes things a little bit more spicy, I think.
It does. And the first matchup we have today is actually 2 teams fighting for their first win, and it's the Jade Dragons and the Valhalla Valkyries, and then a pretty good matchup to round out the day. After that, it's going to be Scarabs versus the Kings there as well, so a matchup on the other side. So 2 teams at 1-1 will round out the weekend, and then 2 teams at 0-2. That's the Jade Dragons and the Valkyries will start off the weekend here. And it's so interesting, I think, that the start that the Dragons have had here, of course, it's not ideal. They've been off to a bit of a rocky start. They lose to the Scarabs. They then lose to the Leviathans earlier on this weekend. The Valkyries, their struggles continue. And a lot of it's been, sort of fun to follow along with both of these teams, all of the teams this weekend. The map changes, I think, have been really unique. You think the teams have kind of learned the map well from what you've seen so far? Have there been any growing pains in your eyes, or these guys get enough practice that it hasn't made a huge impact?
It just seems, as far as the Jade Dragons are concerned, they've just been a little bit on a slower start. Pancat even alluding to it in a couple of those pre-game interviews. The fact of the matter is that the team maybe not necessarily as prepped as they could have been, but that's probably bound to change over time, given that they had a chance to, participate in another set after the midseason changes. So not something I would ever expect to say, though, finding Jade Dragons at the very bottom, but we are only in week 2 here.
Yeah, can't believe it. But look, this is the bounce-back game I think that the Jade Dragons need to, I don't want to say take advantage of, but maybe take advantage of. The Valkyries have had some struggles. This is the type of opponent that traditionally the Dragons haven't had much trouble with. So I think on both sides we're going to see how the Dragons and the Valkyries are looking after a matchup like this. The Jade Dragons, I think you need to lean on your stalwart support here in this matchup. Polar Bear Mike, so far this season, he's top assists in the league right now. He's had one more game played than Wrong You, to be fair, and so Wrong You about 3 assists behind PBM. But the way Mike plays in these matchups tends to be pretty indicative of how the Dragons end up playing and whether or not they get the win.
It's just about whether or not Polar Bear Mike can actually be aggressive with his God Pick selection choices. And lately, the Jade Dragons kind of putting Mike not necessarily in a tough spot, because obviously drafting is something that is covered as a whole, and the teams are obviously going to be practicing stuff throughout their scrims, but it just seems as though at times Mike and Sam maybe not necessarily on the same page. So I think that Friday's set definitely gave them a great opportunity to try and look through some of where they went wrong and see if they could just bounce back for this one.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up Sam here. Sam has been such a driving force for this roster. Had a couple of tough games in the last matchup where we saw these guys play. So this will be a turnaround, I think, necessary performance almost from Sanford Soccer. But we brought up PBM, and I think that's a great person to interview going into this matchup, because PBM always brings the knowledge to the table. So let's jump on in. Got a pregame interview with Polar Bear Mike. Mike, thanks for sitting down with me first and foremost. Look, it's I think admittedly not been the start that you guys have wanted here in phase number 2. Can't imagine it's anything you guys are actually all that concerned about. What's been kind of the diagnosis, though? Do you guys sort of know where you're going wrong and know what to look at and know what to change? Man, I am 0 for 2 on people muting themselves in these interviews. I had it yesterday, now I have it today. Mike is with me now, though, so I'll re-roll the same question to you there, Mike.
No, I got it. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Yeah, I think we just are having different ideas of what we want to do and what the changes actually mean for us. So just not as cohesive as maybe we were in the past, and just ramping things back up. A lot of us took a few weeks off, so just getting things back together.
Admittedly, as a caster, I'm trying to figure out how the green buff slots into strategy, into performances. What's the priority on the green buff? Are you going back for it every time you can get it? Is it if you happen to be walking that way, you'll pick it up? Is purple and red on that side of the map still just the most important?
At first I thought it would be whatever, it doesn't really matter that much, who really cares? The farm-wise, I feel that way about it a little bit. I don't make a point to farm it, but it's definitely worth picking it up if you can. In the mid-game, I definitely feel the difference in how much health it gives you. It can end up being 200 health or whatever, so it definitely feels nice.
Can be pretty beefy. And then talk to me a little bit about the meta. You brought up the meta, kind of figuring out the way things are going. Specific to support, the boots changes have some sort of impact. I know Umoja got changed around a little bit. Do you still see the same types of gods being priority in the support role? We have seen a little bit of that this weekend. But has the transition for you specifically been pretty smooth?
Yeah, it didn't change as much or it didn't feel as different as I was maybe hoping that it would be. Right. I think there are different characters that have different spikes in the game. Some come online a little bit later because they don't have tank boots early. Some come online quicker. I think Umoja is a good example where tank boots didn't really do a ton for her and her Omi before, and then between that change and not having tank boots, I think she feels pretty fun. So yeah, it just depends on the character. Overall, you're going to see just characters with strong kits are just going to stay around.
Hey, and in the pregame highlights, you got a nice steal on Umoja. Maybe we see a little more of that today here for you, Mike. First of all, thanks for sitting down with me. Best of luck in your matchup. I'll let you go get ready.
Thanks.
Always great to hear from Polar Bear Mike. Now, on the flip side, the support that's going to have to step up has had a storied matchup in the past with PBM. The Valhalla Valkyries, they've had a tough go of things, not even just in Phase 2, but in Season 8 so far in general. Raffer, the support, and really the duo lane Taco, I think, in general for the Valkyries. They're going to have to step up big today up against Panda Cat and PBM.
Definitely a lot of inconsistencies as far as the Valhalla Valkyries have been concerned. And granted, this is one of the few teams, feel like it's a necessity to mention almost every single time, but the entirety of their team is on European ping.
Yep.
But regardless of that aspect, they're not the only ones having to perform on the European ping. And I know it can be tough at times, but some of the things that we have seen from Raffer have been great, and then other times not so much. I think it's just about Raffer being able to find his flow, which is definitely bound to be a little bit problematic up against the likes of the Jade Dragons, but given the mid-season changes that just recently took place, I think that this is a prime opportunity for the Valhalla Valkyries to showcase that they are looking to make those adaptations.
Agreed. You know, every once in a while, big changes to the game like this can kind of bring unforeseen change to certain rosters. Maybe this is the type of meta that the Valhalla Valkyries can lean into a little bit better. Raffer has absolutely shown, I think, as you mentioned there, Taco, these flashes of brilliance, and then the duo lane with him and Emilito sometimes can fall kind of far behind in these games. I am curious, and I know we got Raffer on the screen. We'll get into this a little bit in picks and bans. We saw Kali so much yesterday, and I think it's got to be mentioned here when we're talking about this Valkyries roster. I know that's something that type of pick is something Johnny at the SEC level really like to play. First, Kali, yes or no? What's the eye test on Kali? Second, if yes on Kali, do you think it's something Johnny might play today?
Kali is extremely viable in this given meta. Not only does she have pretty strong mobility, but on top of that, despite a slightly lackluster early to mid-game, once she actually hits that mid-game stride, Dolson, that is where she really has a tendency to perform. And where Kali flourishes best is just when she's able to find those big flank pick opportunities.
Yep.
She can even be an initiating factor. It just depends on how well the team is actually capable of following up. But as far as like beads burn is concerned, I think that Kali definitely hits the mark with that. She's just your typical hyper carry assassin. She's just a little bit more on the high execution end, and it doesn't take a whole lot for things to go wrong with Kali, but when you actually get it right, it feels unstoppable.
All right, I'm curious if I think that was a dab to the rest of the team, or maybe it was to us, I'm unsure, but he dabbed nonetheless. And I appreciate that there from Final K. I think that's the important thing here from this Dragons team, where you're still seeing joy, you're still seeing happiness. And I think Mike kind of hinted to it pretty well there in the pregame interview where I said, look, not the start you or any team would have wanted so far here in Phase 2. You're 0-2. You're in the conversation for one of the best teams in the league. Do you know where things have gone wrong? And I think not unexpected at all. All right, now Hurrywind adds one in. Now we got to just make the cycle through and see if everyone does.
You know what we need to do? We need to see if we can get all of them to give us the Sam for Soccer patented chair seating. That way we all
What's
get a
that?
knee
Is that
cam.
feet on the
little
feet
bit
on
of
the
knee
chair?
cam from the Jade Dragons.
Right.
The knee action.
See, my legs are too long. There's no chance I could feet on chair. I think, well, first I would knock the glass right off the top of this desk. See, I think Mike is being asked to dab right now. Yeah, he's not going to do it. Yeah, no chance.
Yeah,
all right, so no chance there for
absolutely will
PBM.
not.
Look, on the flip side, though, I think Mike unsurprisingly said, look, we know where things are going wrong. I don't think the turnaround potential of this Dragons team is really under any question.
No, I think that for the most part, the Jade Dragons, given the success that they had, I mean, they came off of the Split 1 playoffs as the #1 team in the SPL. It's not like this team isn't capable of having really strong performances. I think that it's really just been a matter of, okay, they've been a little bit sluggish to the start, but that doesn't mean that they're completely out of the race just yet. I mean, we are only in week 2.
We are far from the panic button.
2 sets is really nothing to be that concerned over, especially not here in only the secondary phase of the SPL. And when you factor in that one of those sets was being played on the 8.6 bonus patch, the next set was immediately after the midseason changes had taken place, it's just It's definitely seemed a little bit all over the place from the Jade Dragons, don't get me wrong, but I feel as though a large portion of where they've gone wrong in their sets has really just come down to simple ability misuse and just like not really connecting on their follow-up where they've been intending. Those are very easy things to resolve.
And these have been 3-game sets. It's not like the Dragons are getting blown out. You go to the toe-to-toe with the Leviathans in 3 games. The Scarabs have kind of been kryptonite to this Jade Dragons team. That's also a 3-game set. On the flip side, though, I think now for the Valkyries, the kind of, I don't know, prognosis, I think, is the medical term. I'm far from a doctor, so I shouldn't be just throwing that out willy-nilly. But the thought, I think, with this Valkyries team is that we knew there were going to be some growing pains. It was going to take a little bit of time to build into it. We're starting to get to that point, though, Taco. We're halfway through the year, right? I mean, now is starting to be the time where the Valkyries maybe need to take some strides.
Maybe they can take a look at. I mean, it's easier for it to go inwards. I think that for the Valhalla Valkyries, where we have seen a lot of promising instances for them, have been where Ducky and Johnny have been able to really take off. And so I'm more curious to see whether or not the Valhalla Valkyries are going to choose to try and maybe utilize their side lanes a little bit more. If they're not having that much success off of their dual lane, it can sometimes pay to shift that attention elsewhere, especially when you're dealing with the likes of Fine, OK, and Sam.
Yep, and I'm intrigued where the meta starts to look for Emilito here because we haven't seen them on this recent update, so we'll get more answers in picks and bans. But hey, if you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you can grab one for yourself at shop.smiteproleague.com. All proceeds, of course, will be donated on into the Trevor Project. We got hoodies, we got black and gray t-shirts, and black and gray hoodies. It fits well, it's super comfortable. Grab one for yourself, and all proceeds go to a great, great cause. Also at shop.smiteproleague.com. are all of the team jerseys, things like that. So make sure to go online and check that one out. Picks and bans for game number 1. Ready to go, though. The Valhalla Valkyries and the Jade Dragons will begin their draft right here and right now. So we haven't seen the Valkyries yet since this big update has happened. So I think we'll get some answers on where their priorities start to lie, where the Jade Dragons' priority starts to lie against the Valkyries as well. I think the issue with this Dragons team is there's so much you have to look at. You don't want Fine OK to get these comfortable characters. You don't want Hurrywin to get Giannis potentially, despite some changes maybe being in there. Panda Cat and PBM can drive the game. The bounty of riches for the Dragons makes things difficult to ban against them.
And so far, the sets where the Dragons have been controlled the most have been those revolving around bans like this Mercury. Valhalla Valkyrie seeming to take a page out of the other team's books right now. They're not going to let Sam get a staple comfort pick. Mercury as well, I think, a pretty strong jungle pick option since that midseason change. I'd imagine that a Giannis is likely to follow suit here for the Valhalla Valkyries. And then after that, possibly a Pele or another sort, maybe even the Fenrir, since the Jade Dragons have such a strong tendency to lean towards that. Well, there's the
thumbs up.
There's the Fenrir.
Yeah, works out here. The Valkyries will take away the Fenrir. Some flexibility in that pick as well. Mike has really loved the Fenrir, but has flexed over to other roles in other teams here in the SPL. Gilgamesh also takes a back seat. I think the flexibility between Johnny and Ducky there, whether jungle or solo lane for the Valkyries, definitely makes that a good ban here for the Jade Dragons, because we've seen the likes of Lasbra really run backlines with that Gilgamesh pick. So I think just the team fight changing nature of a pick like that, too threatening to leave onto the table. Loki, though, really seen a lot of priority, though, this weekend.
Loki has definitely seen a lot of prevalence towards priority bans, but that's just going to have to be a feature when you're dealing with a member like Johnny. You have to remember the Valkyries did, in fact, win the last time Johnny had that Loki available, and then he was out of play for so long due to some other, external factors, but now that he is back in play, it's no real surprise that the Jade Dragons are going to opt to ban him, and Jade Dragons actually leaving the Tiamat open in response to the Valhalla Valkyries. And I was going to mention, had a feeling that the Valkyries may be going to toy around with the thought of taking Giannis for themselves, so this is sort of a pick your poison scenario here, because whatever the Valkyries decide not to go with, Jade Dragons could have both.
Remember, we talked to Mike a little bit in the pregame interview about the support changes, whether it be in the god selection or the itemization, and he mentioned Yamoja as the type of pick that double benefits from the lack of boots and the way the Omi has been changed around. So I think getting that out of Mike's hands and also giving Raffer something comfortable, something that can make plays, very, very good here. Tiamat locked in for Hurrywind. It was Zeros who had played Tiamat, only won in the last 6 games for this Valkyries team, and it was 1-4-3, so hasn't quite found the same success. And I think getting Hurrywind on something comfortable here for the Jade Dragons is only ever going to be a good thing. 1-1-12, so kind of a support KDA the last time that Hurrywind picked that one up. But it was the one game they won against the Leviathan, so maybe let's return to something that works.
Not only that, but Tiamat and Fafnir are both relatively flexible as far as compositions are concerned, because you definitely have reliable burst damage on the Tiamat here. A smart response, though, from the Valkyries, taking away that Danzaburu so that Pandacat doesn't get his hunter of choice here, but granted, Chiron still available. There's also the likes of Artemis that could potentially come into play, although a little bit more problematic probably when dealing with the River's Rebuke out of the Emoja, and seeing that tier as well locked in for Ducky leads me to believe that this is the Valhalla Valkyries just looking solely for control.
Yeah, it does feel that way, and Ducky hasn't played tier in his last 6 games, has played King Arthur a few times, so of course different in the minutia of how those characters operate, but a similar mindset. Ducky went 7-2-2 against the Leviathans in one of those games on the King Arthur, so that at least has looked pretty good. And I think getting Ducky, similar to getting Hurrywind on something comfortable, getting Ducky on something that he can perform on is only ever going to be a good thing here for the Valkyries. Serket takes a ban alongside the Raijin, but the Jade Dragons round out their top 3 with this Odin here, Taco. And Odin has just seen a skyrocket in priority here this weekend.
This Odin pick might have also just been a dagger into the Valkyries composition. I'm not sure the Valkyries were anticipating that Odin pick to come through, but bound to be a requirement for a Phantom now for the Valhalla Valkyries, given that their top 3 so far can't even reasonably escape from that Odin cage. The only way the tier gets out of there is to expend the ultimate, and that's not exact. You don't want to be using that tier ultimate as a disengage tool. That is primarily for initiation. Anytime a tier is having to actually run away with his ultimate, you can bet that there's probably some issues on the back end with that. But this Odin, Fafnir frontline as well, a lot of HP for the likes of a Danzaburu to try and shred through. We have been seeing a heavy tendency for a lot of these hunters to be leaning more towards that bow tree build currently, but the Humbats just further reinforces we're going to fight AoE against AoE. Yeah,
I'm looking at just space control now for the Jade Dragons. Hey, we wondered if we'd see a Kali, and we've seen it a few times this weekend. 0% win rate, 0 for 3 is this Kali so far in Phase 2 of Season 8. Morgan has seen a priority of play. Largely the Bolts have played her, and then she's seen flexibility with some other teams there as well. But I want to focus on this Kali for a minute, because it feels like a lot of these success hinges on what's happening around the Kali, because she can draw attention, or if attention is elsewhere, that's really where Kali can kind of flourish. Is Kali good for the draft that the Valkyries have gotten here?
My concern is that the Jade Dragons, especially with that Fear No Evil, I have some definite concerns surrounding the Kali, because typically, you think, oh, I'll just pop my destruction in case I get low, but that's not necessarily going to be the case when you're having to deal with the Fear No Evil, and even with the Odin cage, might not necessarily get that big heal that you're actually looking for. And there's the Artemis pick that I had a feeling we were going to be seeing a little bit more of her. Expect this pick to be sticking around Dulcin, because the bow tree build, relatively strong for a lot of these hunters, and Artemis also just introducing another factor of control, another factor of interruption as well for this Kali to try and navigate through. And Morrigan could definitely find herself getting caught up inside of that Odin ring as well. This is a really well-executed draft from the Jade Dragons, but now the question is whether or not their execution is going to line up with what they've actually picked for themselves.
Right, I'm thinking, all right, so if I'm Kali now, I'm Johnny, I jump on to Artemis. If I don't have beads, let's precursor it. The beads are down. Even if the beads are up, there seem to be like 9 different CCs that are going to be flying in towards you. You either get hit by a boar, hit by a Fear No Evil, you're locked into an Odin cage. Odin has a stun. Fafnir's got a hammer. T-Mat has some disengage in there as well. So I think Johnny's going to have his hands full in this game trying to make an impact on this Kali. But I think important to find some good here for the Valkyries. They've got potential for control with the Emoja if Danzaburo gets into a point where you can rock it in and feel comfortable. Maybe you're going to be better off. Do the Valkyries have some bright spots for you, Taco, that give them a good chance here against the Dragons?
There's definitely win conditions involved here. I can't shake the fact that this is certainly still a relatively strong composition for the Valhalla Valkyries, but one of their primary woes throughout Season 8 so far, Dolson, has been their lack of execution, even when their compositions have looked as strong as they do right now. And not only that, but I really do feel like the Jade Dragons definitely got the upper hand here in terms of counter initiation.
Oh, I think so. I mean, Tiamat, Fafnir, Odin, Hunbat's Artemis has been maybe like A tier and every single S tier in every single one of those categories so far here this weekend. So maybe then the name of the game for the Dragons is as simple as let's control the space that the Valkyries choose to jump into. Hunbats against Kali I think is going to be pretty fun to follow along with. Let's ignore the team fighting for a moment. Let's talk about early, moving into mid game. How does that kind of look, Kali and the Hunbats in the jungle?
I don't really see Kali having too many advantages over the Humbats. I think that would definitely require the Jade Dragons, primarily Horiwin and Sam, would have to be fairly far out of position, I think, for a Kali to capitalize on anything in the early game. It's more so, and the thing is, too, with the introduction of the Morrigan, that leads me to believe that we're going to see Zeros possibly looking for those super long flank rotations. I think another player that comes to mind probably be Venenu, who's been doing that just about all weekend when the Bolts had Morrigan in their sets. And if Zeros is able to find good success here for a beads burn application, then the Kali might have a chance to really shine.
I think the Morrigan actually maybe, and to your point there, Taco, becomes such a sneaky pivot point here for this Valkyries team because so many of the things that we've said the Jade Dragons have, and it's what they do have, all the lockdown, all the CC, the ability to keep that Kali at bay, the Morrigan can provide at least one of those things for your team. If you're transforming into the Hunbats or the Artemis, right? Sometimes,
I get scared because of what we saw from Final K's Odin last time. That you have to remember that was the game that the Jade Dragons won, and he just dominated on the Odin.
Yeah, look, I think I'm finding silver linings here for the Valhalla Valkyries because they'll need some to overcome the Jade Dragons. Game number 1, Valkyries Dragons, brought to you by J-Mac and Hindu Man.
Thank you, Dolson. Thank you, Taco. J-Mac and Hindu Man here to bring you the Valhalla Valkyries versus the Dragons. And Hindu, I'm looking right here, and when we're talking about Morgan, who's been one of the biggest rises in the meta as of this mid-season, what better player other than maybe Venenu to throw it on than probably Zeros?
Yeah, in fairness, I do agree. Zeros has been around on the Morrigan for quite a while. More interestingly with the Morrigan right now is where the build goes for me. One thing we've seen from the Morrigan players is the mobility factor being very important, using the stealth to reposition very quickly, very effectively with that movement speed. I just wonder if we see more movement speed in this build and where it will come from. The only thing that really screams to me is a do more pickup, but where in the build may you see that picked up? We'll find out as this one begins.
And we were talking a little bit about this Kali kind of off-screen before coming into here, and probably the premier Kali player outside of the SPL in recent years have been Johnny. Johnny is probably the Kali player when you think about, especially when you go back to his SCC days. This was probably his #1 pick outside of maybe Ao Kwong.
Yeah, I completely agree, and we'll see exactly how Johnny can do on this because, well, the reason for the Kali rise, in fairness, is if you see all these hunters building attack speed builds and all these bow trees doing so well, well, guess what? Some of these auto-attack-based junglers are very effective in the same right. Easy to get penetration, easy to get attack speed online. And that's one thing Kali thrives on is auto-attacking very fast, very quick.
Sunder thrown out by both supports here, trying to get a little bit of pressure. They both fall to about half, at least for a Polar Bear Mike, and Emil falls down to about half as well. He'll heal up. Johnny looking for some kind of rotation here over at this mid side, but they're having a stare down. They walked over a double ward right there at that mid camp. So there's not going to be any further pressure there from Johnny and Zeros.
Yeah, I'm actually looking through the builds as well and just seeing where Rafa started off here. Didn't go for a starter item at all this time round. Looks like he could be rushing the Thebes or maybe Mailer Renewal, something like that. We'll see where that goes into. But he is foregoing some of that early game sustain that you would expect. Although when you think about it, your Moja doesn't really require that MP5 that a lot of the supports do.
Yeah, that Omi kind of does give her that uniqueness to where she doesn't have to do the same thing that everybody else does, similar to the Kukulkan. If you lose the blue buff, oh no, I lost blue buff, I'm a Kukulkan, I don't need it. Similar seeing onto here, so maybe we do see that Thebes rush, I imagine. So, I mean, Thebes just seems like it's still such a great item.
Oh, for sure. I mean, 10 ult procs, extra health on this. The health in the early game, definitely useful for the most part for the support options. But mainly it's when the protections come online that'll come into play a little bit more, giving those ult procs to the team of 10 for each will be effective in this one. Do notice as well that Horiwin in the mid lane did go for this Vampiric Shroud. I'm a big believer, J-Mac, that this item has been slept on for too long, and the recent buffs it got to itself in terms of extra physical protection has just put it to an echelon now where we're going to see it every single day.
I hope we keep seeing it more. I love this item. When it first got introduced in Season 8, I was a firm believer in the Sacrificial Shroud. I loved it. Gods like Anubis were so much fun to play. You finally felt like you could actually do something late game, but nobody was picking this up. It just felt like it kind of didn't have any favor amongst the starter items, especially for the mid lane mages.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think mainly it's the lifesteal builds that we'll see come through with a lot of these that will be effective. Soul Gem's useful, Spear the Magus as well. That also has lifesteal on it now. So extra lifesteal options that you can get for yourself and allow that to coincide with this Vampiric Shroud that will be upgraded late game will be effective, and it gives you a ton of sustain.
Well, we did see Sam make an early rotation to dual lane, but just to steal out that purple buff, realizing they're a little too far under tower to get the kill, but since they're all the way under tower, they can't do anything about the purple buff.
Love that play from Ducky there. Just a distance fine okay from trying to get in and basic attack that away. That camp on the right-hand side there, J-Mac, it's always contested in terms of who gets the last basic. That's all it's really about.
I mean, it's the same thing on the dual lane ones as well, though. It's a little bit easier to confirm your own unless you don't have that pressure in lane. You know, similar here how the Dragons have them pushed so far up. Maybe they can take that one. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter who deals the final bit of damage to it. It's not like the totem where you got to do all the damage. All you need is that one little cheeky basic.
No real surprises so far, though, J-Mac, regarding exactly how this game's began. Unless we see an early kill on an early rotation,
maybe
could just be a Fear No Evil.
Maybe like this one here, but waiting out the Lawbringer. Not going to elect to use that Fear No Evil. Sam going to hold on to that one patiently, though. Didn't have much mana on the follow after. Same with Final K. He just used the last of his in that little jump.
But both these teams as well, definitely going to be farming through the early game. If anyone had expect the Dragons in the early stages to look for rotations, look for picks in the jungle. And with Final K on the Odin and, of course, this Humbats, I do think Ducky's going to be very careful playing around this Lawbringer consistently.
I mean, look at the top, though, here. I mean, 900 gold separating them. Not a single kill has gone through, and I've only seen maybe one camp invade onto it. I mean, where is this lead coming from?
I mean, look at the experience at the bottom. You can see it's slightly in favor there of Polar Bear Mike in terms of the experience. The gold differential, though, is just the effectiveness of farming together in groups. Splitting the camp as two might not feel good for the individual, but as a team, it works out a lot better than seeing one person getting a huge lead in terms of extra gold and extra experience if the rest of the team falls behind. And that's why you can see the Jade Dragons just done a better job of sharing the map so far on these rotations.
Right now, Raffer looking to see if he can make anything happen here in mid, or maybe just clear out of camp, get some extra experience on the board for him. Does have his Gauntlet of Thieves online, same with Polar Bear Mike, who just picked up his, but only a few stacks separate them so far between this rush.
Yeah, it's a good point as well, just to realize that Raffer did force that very, very early on, and it's not really affected in any way, shape, or form the trajectory of experience and gold coming in, because Polar Bear Mike has kept even with him. And if anything, Polar Bear Mike is ahead in terms of build because of this. A whole item over him, sure, it's a starter, but it's still something.
3 grouped up in mid, but still nothing to be had. Ultimate used. Vimaliti just off a rotation from Sam for Soccer. Not sure if he walked over a ward and that was the cause of it, or maybe he'll just need to get back to base as quick as possible there.
Yeah, there was a couple of wards there just in the jungle to give vision, and Vimaliti playing it safe there. Doesn't really surprise me. Pushed up the wave a little bit far forward. I'm just checking with builds again. We do see that Doom Mob coming out from zeros here on the Morrigan. I was mentioning that mobility factor on a Morrigan, very, very important in these games. Just to be able to reposition in these fights, use the trajectory of the stealth to surprise people with how far you can get and reposition in these engagements.
It feels like this Jotun's Wrath has also kind of come back into favor now with this recent mid-season. Sam for Soccer rushing that immediately after his Eye of the Jungle onto that one. And I mean, those little bitty buffs that got to it. And plus, I mean, who doesn't want 20% cooldown reduction on a god like Humbats? But maybe we'll have to hold that Final K. Maybe in a little bit of danger there, but Johnny's not going to make that rotation over. He'll just leave it be.
Still hard to try and gank Final K at this stage, though, on this Odin. The rise of Odin is something we will definitely talk about, but now that he's used that Bird Bomb, he could be under pressure.
He still has the cage, though, and maybe they're just trying to wait that one out. Knockup is going to be good off of the Fearless, but not much further follow-up onto it. Johnny just trying to get some extra experience on the map. I mean, look how far he's fallen behind Sam already.
Look at the difference with Ducky's build, Johnny's build, and what Final K's picked up there. The Mystical Mail with the protections he gets from that, the health too. At the moment, in terms of Johnny's build, he's gone for Chin, so sure, he's doing % health damage, but he's still going to get through the armor too to deal even more. Same for Ducky. We've gone for the Breastplate of Valor. He's not swinging to high heaven at all, which means Odin can just sit there and sustain, and because of that rotation, this is why we see the Dragons group there.
Yeah, Scorpions will fall down to the Dragons. Meanwhile, the purple buff will go the way of the Valkyries. Slow-paced game, But it seems to be natural here with the Valkyries. You have a Kali, you're not expected to go gung-ho in the first 15-20 minutes of the game.
Agreed, and that's kind of expected with this composition. I'm saying Dragons are the ones that will be on the forefront in the early game. If we see Sam rotating, looking for the picks, that's where I expect them to come from, and then maybe see the Valkyries counter-punch off the back of that. I feel with Valkyries draft here, they'll be looking to counter-initiate a lot of the time. I do concern myself with Valkyrie's draft, though, when we get to the later stages, even if they're in the lead, how they can really siege up towers and phoenixes, because where does their engage really come from?
And where do we see the Dragons make that first pull? Where do they pull the trigger on this gun? Where do they strike first on the Valkyries here?
Realistically, I think their options are very, very open for them at the moment. It's the window's closing on trying to gank Ducky. If anything, the window on Ducky may have already closed with the fact he's got that breastplate of Valor online. But I do think there's a susceptibility towards mid, jungle, and the duo lane for Dragons to pull the trigger. Realistically, though, instead of saying, where's it going to be, I think it's just going to come natural of where's Sam in the right area when a situation has developed.
Well, fine, okay. Proxy farming against Ducky early on. Just back there behind the tower, but there's really no one who can stop him. PBM kind of sitting around the jungle, seeing if maybe he can spot somebody out. Does manage to see Johnny rotating away from his Harpies. Gives that cue over to Hurrywin and Sam to make their rotation back towards the red buff. But still, just taking it one step at a time, both these teams. We do see Mike still sitting on that left side of the map. He has not left that red camp.
There's a pinch coming. I think Rafa could be stuck in it too. He realizes it as he gets aggressive, and now he's under pressure.
Right onto the back, and Rafa's going to fall down. First blood goes the way of Hurrywin off a beautiful pincer by Mike.
And meanwhile, on the backside, Emilito trading against Sam, but will escape, but Panda's on the way.
Still has that leaf to give them that extra bit of mobility. Sam has spotted him out. There's a 4-man rotation for Emil. He does not have the rocket. Use the purification bead very early. Gonna be the spin ult out of Hurrywin, consume on top, and there's nowhere for him to go. Hurrywin picks up 2 early kills.
Really good little work from Hurrywin there too, because when that taunt comes down from that Dansborough and Emilito, using his ultimate in that melee form to spin around, gives him a bit of CC immunity, doesn't have to consume his beads to avoid it and be able to secure the kill. And off the back of that, Jay, look at this. They're going straight for the Fury.
And he still had that Draconic form the whole time forward. They're going to back right off. Johnny stepped a little too far forward. He's got Rapper back with him into destruction, looking for his first target. It looks like it's Panda Cat, but Panda's able to leap away for the time. Cage comes down because Zeros gets a beautiful transformation into the Odin, and that'll net him his first kill, and the first kill for the Valkyries. Hurrywin still trying to get something going for them. Raffer on the wrong side of the map, leaping in from Hurrywin. He's going to get a nice little knock up, and the Consume's going to do some damage. Riptide, but the slow from Sam might be good enough to continue the chase. Ult out of Hurrywin, and a couple more basics are needed. Raffer is still on the run. There's no way he can get out of this one. They're just waiting for who's going to get it, and it'll be a third one now for Hurrywin.
And if you think how that went, that fight broke out, there was a pick in mid lane, then onto Raffer, then they go to duo lane, take out Emilito, then to the Gold Fury. And then Valhalla Valkyries try to answer back with Johnny and Rafa respawning, trying to get in there and cause some problems for the Dragons. But in doing so, they trade Johnny out for Panda Cat, and then they lose Rafa too. So the scoreline develops even more favorably in terms for the Dragons.
Giving 4 kills over to the Dragons in a matter of a minute and a half, and 3 of those going on to Hurrywin on the Tiamat.
Oh,
not known for the early game super well, so you can get her a little bit closer to that later stage. That's a dangerous god to give that to.
But what's the threat, really, for the Tiamat in this game? Honestly, once Johnny's off the table, his ultimate's down, who's he scared of in these early stages? You're not going to see Tyr rotating at 10 minutes in, necessarily. So really, he's just able to sit in that melee form that you love to see Tiamat in when she gets the window to do so, and now it's just catapulted Dragons into a very comfortable lead.
And instead of going for the usual Spear of Desolation that these mages love going into, he's opted for that Divine Ruin, trying to adapt to Raffer, maybe even adapt to Johnny there as well to kind of slow down his ultimate if he manages to get a reset of some kind, maybe try and diminish that a little bit.
I mean, the anti-heal is just going to be impactful throughout the game anyway. You're going to see plenty of people in the game have some natural sustained Tyr as an example of one, as well as Raffer with these heals coming through from the Emoja too. Left-hand side, you can see Panda now has a 2-level lead over Emilito as Zero's in trouble in mid.
Zeros has to use the beads early on and the Aegis as well, but a somersault right on top. Sam for Soccer dive in the tower with the help of PBM to tank that tower. They'll take down the mid laner for his first death.
And all the while, Fine OK rotating around the rack. Mike was flanking behind the Tier 1 tower there too. You can see Dragons are trying to play through mid now. Hurry's got a huge lead, and that's the focal point from the Dragons. Run it down mid lane, but Ducky is looking to turn it around. Potentially Sam saw it though.
Sam notices it immediately, goes right to him, and now Panda Cat still free reign on this left-hand side of the map. Tier 1 tower will fall. The Jade Dragons put themselves up a nice 3K gold lead off of what was just nothing going on. The last 3 minutes is where all this lead has just exploded from.
Exactly, and that's generally what you're looking for these teams to do, is find a small window of opportunity and then exploit it and continue to grow that throughout the game where possible. I think these rotations straight after the Gold Fury fight are definitely trying to frustrate the Zeros, definitely trying to frustrate Johnny in the jungle more than anything else. Keep the pressure around mid, allow Panda to take the 1v1s against Emelito. Now that he's got a 2-level lead, you can leave Panda on an island over here, by the way, and he should be pretty comfortable to deal with anything that comes at him. The rest of the team running it down mid, keeping the pressure through here. This opens up the jungle. The red buff invades, the speed buff invades. Good play from Dragon so far.
So we are seeing a little bit of light from them into the solo lane. Ducky does have a slight experience lead over Fine OK. Zeros, despite the death, has been keeping pace with Hurrywind, even though he's got now 3 kills and 2 assists on the board. So I don't feel that it's entirely out for the Valkyries just yet. I mean, this is the early stage.
It is the early stage, and yes, Carly is late game, and Dansborough will scale well, so will the Morrigan. But can we get to that late stage now? We're just approaching mid-game for my liking. Mid-tier 1 tower is already down. The Gold Fury is available, though, and this could be a big one.
Hammer onto Ducky. Upgraded Sunder now as well by Polar Bear Mike. He's finally picked that one up with the Relic Dagger, so expect lots of Sunders to come through. Final K gets pushed against the wall. Fear No Evil into the back onto Zeros, who's transformed into the Odin, looking for a chase down. Bird Bomb onto the back onto Sam, but in the front line, Emil finds Hurrywind, caught out of position. Mike's gonna get stunned, knocked back against the wall. He's just trying to find a way out, and he does manage to find it. Lawbringer by Ducky, and a jump in from Fine OK. The cage is now gone. The rest of the team is rotated over. Emil's getting low. The life steal from the Aussies keeping him alive, but not long enough. Fine OK will find the final base. Going to blink to block off Raffer's pathing, but Ducky is still full health. Johnny's going to leap right in, get the stun, get the destruction, chasing down Panda Cat. That has got to be the target for him, but the Aegis will delay him a little while longer until Ducky manages to find him, but Johnny's low in the middle of 3. Don't know how he's lived that long. Sam for Soccer will find him. And now Raffer is the one in danger. Mike leaps on top. Fine OK. Gonna get pushed away out of the leap. Nice Fearless by Ducky. But Raffer doesn't seem to be out of it just yet. PBM, his eyes are glowing red looking for that kill, but he's gonna have to back away.
Crazy engagement there, but if anything, that, for my liking, is in favor of the Valkyries more than the Dragons. Just because Dragons had the lead at that moment, they shut down Hurrywind in the mid lane early on. More importantly for me in that engagement is how Zeros played the fight. Turns into Odin, focuses on Sam for Soccer, takes him out of the engagement to the left-hand side. Sure, Zeros dies there. He doesn't do a whole ton in terms of getting kills, but what he does do is keep Panda Cat at bay and Sam at bay. This allows the window there for the rest of the Valhalla Valkyries to collapse and pincer onto Hurrywind, find that kill, and try to extrapolate a lead there, giving Johnny a window. It's not terrible, it's not great either. I do like the fact we saw both teams fight for an extended period there, and I wouldn't say Dragons looked all that clean.
Another thing to note on that one, the Fear No Evil was the first ultimate used in that fight. And who was it on to? Zeros.
Yep.
Zeros has both of his relics still. He didn't have to use a single one for that fight. That's a textbook play of just outplaying Sam for Soccer, like you said, keeping him pushed out of that fight. But you take one objective on one side of the map, the team is quick enough on the response, they're going to take the opposite one. Fury goes the way of the Dragons, and the Pyromancer to the Valkyries.
And when you look at the game now with how that last team fight expanded and continued on, with the Gold Fury now going to the Dragons too, sure, they extend their lead. For me, if these skirmishes continue to happen in the jungle around objectives, I'm favouring Dragons because of the amount of cooldown reduction you're starting to see come through from some of these. Pridwin on Odin, that ultimate's going to be up a lot more often. Not just that, but you've also got to deal with the fact that in the jungle, this Hun Bats has continued with a cooldown build, 20% already just from Jotuns alone, and that's going to cause a lot of problems for them when their ultimates are back up in these rotations quicker than the Valhalla Valkyries can get their relics back online.
Cheeky little rage there by Panda Cat. A little bit of a deviation from this full-on bow build we've been seeing from these hunters.
I think we've seen a lot of this, though. There seems to be a wind demon potential in there. All the rage is an option for them, too. And that really, allows the extra bit of damage. And at this stage of the game, getting it this early on for a hunter, 17-minute rage is not bad. Especially when you look at how these team fights are very sporadic, and the fact that he's playing with Tusky, and Tusky's very good at giving you assists, even if you don't realize it.
And that's all you need for that raid. You don't need the kill. You just got to be there for it, and that's the big part onto it. So.
Speaking more importantly, though, about Panda Cat, I'm surprised to see a blink out of him. Because Panda is the original Blink Artemis, and I wouldn't have been surprised to see him look for some initiation with that. But playing it safe this time around, the Aegis obviously against a Johnny who He had to use it there with the ultimate to dissuade him from dying. But more importantly as well, the rest of the build of the flanks from Zeros, for example. Aegis definitely the better option. I would have liked Blink though, but Zeros is hunting!
Gonna find Hurrywind. Polar Bear Mike as well. Transformation into the Odin locks Hurrywind in. He was waiting for that leap to come back up. He's down to half health. The River's Rebuke comes out from Raffer, but Hurrywind is long gone for the time being. Johnny will get hit by the hammer, and he'll have to walk away. A quick disengager, you think that, but Final K blinks into the back with the cage, finds Emil with the stun, locks him inside, trying to get to the rocket, but it's gonna get stopped out immediately. Panic Cat finds him. Ducky is just trying to find a path out, but he gets cut off by his own Riptide from Raffer. Raffer's gonna take that one Riptide to go through and set up for the Lawbringer for Ducky to make his way out. And now the Jade Dragons have control of the map.
Great flank from Fine OK is all that needs to be talked about there. Realized he could wrap around the red buff, get to the back line of the Valkyries, and because of that expose this left-hand tier 2 tower that's going to go down too. Although, I want to go back to it, Zero's engaged there. He just went into the jungle.
Ran at him.
And I'm kind of okay with that. I was worried about where Valhalla Valkyries are going to find these engagements. What are you going to do? Drop the River's Rebuke and call it a day to start an engagement?
Wow. That did a lot of damage.
It did.
Zeros got sundered after the fact, not even before the engagement went through.
Mystical, baby.
But a nice Blink Fearless from Ducky will save the mid laner's life. Final K should be all right here. I don't think there's going to be any real threat to him. He's going to keep going, though, right onto Johnny. Bird Bomb on top, forces the destruction out. But again, Ducky with these Fearlesses are insane. Sanford Soccer just looking for it. Johnny gets the reset. Not a full health one because of the anti-heal. Johnny still low, and Final K will manage to find him with the help of Hurrywind and the rest of the Dragons who have rotated over. Ducky, again, going to push them away and try and dissuade the fight.
Scrappy engagements from the two, but I'm enjoying it because you just don't know which way it's going to go. So many carries in this game that any single one of them could turn the fight around. Johnny had a good little play there, honestly, overall. That started out with a chase onto Zeros from Fine OK, and the only reason Zeros lives, first of all, is because of the mobility in the build. The Chiron's Coin and the Doom Orb give him that extra mobility to survive and stay as far away from Fine OK as possible, but more importantly, the rest of the team. But Raph is in trouble!
No, Rapper's gone. There's no trouble here. There's just death is all that awaits this Yamoja. That'll be his third spill of the game. And now the Dragons are posturing up for a Fire Giant. Ducky is the one trying to make his path in, and he's probably their best option to get into the depths of this Dragon's territory. Zero's lurking around the back. Will find Hurrywind yet again. A transformation right on top. That'll get the leap out of the mid laner. Zeros goes right into the Odin, and the rocket comes through to find Fine OK to make sure to cut a path for Zeros. The double cage is down, but PBM has made his return, gets a stun onto Ducky, and forces a disengage from the Valkyrie. Zeros, though, he's still hunting on that Morgan, looking for a path in.
Did you bring the SEC games with you, by the way? Is that what just happened?
Well, I mean, I brought Johnny here with me, and I brought Johnny here with me.
Oh,
so, yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
I brought
okay.
Johnny with me, yeah. We got the SEC.
Cool. Yeah, it kind of feels that way with how this one's playing out so far, because it is very scrappy engagements in the jungle. I love the playstyle we're seeing out of Zeros, though. Sure, it's not been super effective in getting the kills just yet, but it's keeping the pressure onto this Tiamat on the backline. And more this happens, the deeper and deeper I expect Hurrywind to play if he starts to fall a couple of times in this engagement. I will say I do think Zeros could have been able to get the kill there on him if it wasn't for the ultimate from Hurrywind, who had the beast out that actually provided him a bit of CC.
Well, Emil going to go ahead and take a walk back to the base, or a quick trip back. Meanwhile, the Oni Fury going to be snuck away here by the Dragons. Raffer sniffed it out, but a little bit too late, and that'll be the second Fury for the Way of the Dragons. And Oni Fury, not the biggest one this early on, but at least getting that one off the map and getting the reset for it.
Now, the gold differential is the biggest difference between these two. Experience-wise, if you look at the actual levels there, because of all the scrappy nature of this game, Valhalla Valkyries have closed the gap in a lot of different roles here. The only real difference is still that dual lane. Emilito versus Panda Cat, that early game hasn't changed at all, and that just means that Panda's further along in the build, Wind Demon now online too, and will become more of an impact in these fights. With the Oni minions now spawning, though, this is more chance for
themselves to continue to extend that gold lead, about 5,000 gold now in their favor, maybe closer to 5,500 for them. And looking across the way here, I mean, so Hurrywind started off 3-0 on this Tiamat.
Yep.
Hasn't gotten another kill since, has died once. Got a few assists on the board, though, but we haven't really seen any big kills out of this mid laner since then.
Well, if you think about how every engagement has started, it's been Zeros running to the back line, going in on Hurrywind, so Hurrywind's major focus is survival, but it also means this is working out well for Valkyries. The player damage coming out from Tiamat is on the lower end now because of this, as he's not able to get these rotations out you're looking for from the Tiamat. However, Soul Gem, Typhon's Fang now online for this Tiamat could be a lot easier here to resustain.
And then there is still the Vampiric Shroud to upgrade to see which option he goes to. But Ducky might not get an option to live for much longer. The River's Rebuke saves him for a moment, gets the Lawbringer out over the wall. Cage locks in too. Johnny is stuck inside the destruction, inside the cage, looking for a way out. But Panda Cat's going to be the one who seals the deal. Sam misses the leaf on Emily. He's going to force out the rocket to try and get a disengage or maybe a re-engage. He misses. Panda Cat ends up having to hit the wall, and that's going to spell his death as Sam for Soccer puts him in the dirt.
And what do we see the Dragons do next? Because Raph is definitely going to die down to Hori win there. And that all started off with Ducky getting pincered by the Dragons, just slightly out of position from the rest of his team to be able to follow up. And like we saw for Zeros earlier, like we saw for Rafa earlier, the team has been gathering around each other to support, and that cost them 3 lives and now a Fire Giant.
Fire Giant will go the way of the Dragons. All 5 members with that buff around their waist. And while 2-3 of them were dealing with the Fire Giant, the rest of the team moved on to the Tier 2 tower. Only 1 now stands left on the map for them. They're going to make their way towards the Phoenix. They're a little low for health here. They're going to get some regen off of it. The Mike is there to play support for them. No one can really respond, however, because 3 were still on cooldown from their death.
And now with that, Dragons have a ton of gold in their inventory off this last couple of scraps. The tower's going down too, the Fire Giant. So back to base with that golden 3,000 on Mike here. So you'll see these builds escalate a little bit further. Nice and easy pace for Dragons now. It's just mainly siege up and wait for the right opportune moment. Because so far in this game, I was worried about Valkyries, engage. They have been the ones engaging time and time again in these so far in these skirmishes. And when it comes to defense now, I wonder if Valhalla Valkyries will engage themselves or they'll allow the Dragons to come onto them. They are playing around this Odin ultimate for both sides, I feel like now, because Zeros has been transforming into that Odin religiously so far this game.
I mean, where's the defense for the Valkyries? I mean, we're at the point where they're now going to have to stand at those Phoenixes. Where does that silver lining come from them in these fights?
The problem is the first thing I worry about is wave clear on minions. Like, who's going to step up and clear the wave? They're very short range for the most part. Emelito's clear, not the greatest on Dansborough. Same can be said for Morrigan. I mean, sure, she can step up and hit the wave, but when she uses that Dark Omen, she's putting herself susceptible to a full engage from the frontline tanks. Tricky defense required here from the Valkyries with this comp. You're probably looking at Rafa, the River's Rebuke, to time an ultimate at the same time as Dragons are trying to engage.
Draugr is going to go down on the left-hand side. The Dragons will make sure the Valkyries don't get an option for any kind of extra base defense for themselves. 14-4 reads the scoreboard, but the 11,000 gold tells another tale for it. Still, that 2-level difference between the Hunters as well. How much of a factor is that going to play for them in this fight?
Eventually, not as much, right? Because he's not got that starter item upgraded just yet of that level cowl. However, Tusky, when you hit max level, you do get the extra benefit of all your abilities being maxed out. So Tusky's going to swing a little bit harder is the only real difference there.
We do see Silver Branch Bow as the final item online for Panda Cat. A little bit of damage onto Rapper.
Zeros is going.
He is at Yamoja. He can't heal himself up just a little bit, but Zeros gets caught out in the jungle. Nowhere to go.
He went for the
except
stun.
for the fountain.
Went for the stun, went for the play, trying to force the fight there. Initiation through Zeros again, and it costs the Valhalla Valkyries this left-hand Phoenix.
And it might cost them even more after that. They're looking for the fight after Ducky down to half health. Has to use the beat. Still has the Lawbringer if he needs it, but he's not going to use it just yet. We do see the Riptide come through, and unfortunately Johnny is on the wrong side of the Odin cage. He's going to be able to get the leap, but Panda Cat has just enough damage on the back end of it. Sam finds Emily too, and there's only 2 left standing for the Valkyries. Meanwhile, all 5 of the Dragons are looking mighty healthy, but I can't say the same for the Titan. That one's going down. 26 minutes. Dragons are going to close this game out. They got to get a couple extra kills on the board before they do that, though.
And with that, yeah, they'll take game 1 here. The Dragons, no real surprises, though, with the fact of how these two teams have played through phase 1 and into phase 2. I think a lot of people would have been more surprised if Valhalla Valkyries found the win here today up against the Dragons. But looking at exactly what played out there, honestly, overall, we saw Zeros be the engager for the team, and the sustain options from the Yamoja was a real focal point from the Valhalla Valkyries this game. I just think Dragons played around it very well and did a very good job of kiting Johnny consistently in these engagements.
With that, the Dragons are able to pick themselves up a 1-game lead over the Valkyries. Who's going to come out on top in this set? Well, we'll have to see later. We're going to kick it to a break for the desk to break it down.
The Jade Dragons quickly notch their first win here in this best-of-3 set against the Valhalla Valkyries. And hey, if you're in the market for some Jade Dragons gear, you can head on over to shop.smiteproleague.com. And specifically, I think you need to be looking at the bottom left-hand side of the screen there. That's the arm sleeve. That's what gives Mike his extra little boost of power in these matchups. And you can get one for yourself, as well as some sweet shorts, the Leviathan's hooded blanket thing, and then the Valhalla Valkyries onesie, I think, has got to be maybe the second best item on there. A lot of people would consider it the first, but all of it there at shop.smiteproleague.com. Taco, I think you got excited. You showed visible interest in the onesie, and I guess that's probably your first purchase from the store.
I can't help myself. As a onesie enthusiast, that is clean. Yeah. All of Valkyries are actually dominating when it comes to the merch game.
Yeah, they're fragging in the merch game. Unfortunately, not fragging in the Smite game here in game number 1. At least this is a game from the onset that the Jade Dragons felt in control of. Hurrywind got a few picks early on there, and then this Tiamat and really the rest of the team kind of rally around that, and kind of a clean one here in game 1.
Yeah, J-Mac kind of touched on it a little bit during the cast as well, but Tiamat is not exactly what we would consider an early game monster. So for Hurrywind to find the success and get off to an early killing spree just kind of set the pace for the rest of that matchup, just made Zero's job incredibly difficult. While I think we did see some great transformations off of that Morgan, he was definitely getting a lot of utility out of that Changeling transformation. It just felt as though there was still too much disjointment in terms of the overall team fighting from the Valhalla Valkyries. There were some instances where I think some fights could have probably panned out a little bit better for them, but granted, I think most importantly, this call lead pick for Johnny, I really cannot hate him on it. Just largely seemed to be more of a ping disparity than anything else.
This game really skyrocketed in pace. The first highlight we showed was 9 minutes in, and then 5 minutes later, there's another 10 or so kills on the board. So the Jade Dragon's the type of team that can really press that go button. Panda Cat definitely benefited for it. 4.75 KDA, 18,000 damage. On the Artemis, it's a pick that we figured we would start to see a little bit more of. Has seen some success, has seen some lack of success. Failure, I guess, is the opposite. That's a harsh way of wording it, though. But this is a big win for Panda Cat, the Artemis, and the rest of the Jade Dragons. Undying as PBM and Final K on this Odin. We hearkened back to how worried we are about this pick. My man did 22,000 damage. That's good for 4,000 higher than anyone else in the game, and that's Panda Cat who's close there. Final K doubled up every single player on the Valhalla Valkyries. This Odin pick is just dominant right now, and in the hands of Final K, it might even be twofold.
Yeah, that's pretty good if you ask me, Dave. Anytime someone's able to simultaneously damage output what they are tanking and some, that is definitely incredibly strong stuff there from Fine. Okay, yeah, it might have something to do with the dab.
He started
power.
The dab chain, and then but Mike went undying, and Mike refused to dab, but he did show the cat on the tower in the back.
Mike sacrificed his teammates instead, so he could remain unkilled.
That's right. Well, he's also got the sleeve that you can also get at shop.smiteproleague.com. Make sure to go check it out. P's and B's with PBM kicking off right now. Just kidding. He's in the P's and B's, but not joining us, unfortunately, on the desk for P's and B's. Actually, the last time that Mike casted, this was way before my time. Didn't he cause some waves with his casting? Didn't he swear something on cast when Mike was a guest caster? I think my production says he got fined.
He got a little bit in the fine department, not in the fine okay way
fine
that
bad.
you would be looking for initially.
Fine less than okay.
But Mike certainly bringing the hype, just like our commentators have been from that game one performance. And
yeah, we love some J-Mac around here.
Yes.
Hey, he killed it. Look, cast number 1 totally would have been understandable if the nerves riled up a little bit there, but he stood up to the task and he crushed it in game number 1. Happy to have him here with us. Picks and bans for game number 2 beginning now. Mercury takes a seat. It feels like every single game that the Jade Dragons and Sam Forsaka are playing in, and the strategy seems pretty cut and dry, where Sam just ults down duo lane every single time, but there's obviously more nuance to it than that, and the Valkyries don't want to deal with it, so Mercury will go by the wayside, as well as Loki and Gilgamesh. So the sides flip here, but the bans might remain largely the same.
Unfortunately for Sam, when you have as incredible of Mercury performances as he did, it's just going to end up like the Hurrywind debacle, where you are just likely not going to be able to get the gods of your choosing or preference. And Mercury just having a little bit too much of that semi-global presence, a lot of teamfight control as well. Jade Dragon is just continuing to take focus on Johnny's God pool, and more importantly, the gods that are being stripped away from Johnny Dolson, arguably some of the gods that would be a little bit easier to pilot with the ping issues that Johnny's been having to deal with. Some bright sides, though, from what we saw to the Valkyries in Game 1, some things I would like to see them maybe return to. I didn't hate Zeros on that Morrigan. I actually thought that there was a lot of viability behind Zeros on the Morrigan pick there. And Ducky's tier definitely had some promising entrances. It was just a little bit of the team fight collapse after the fact where things kind of fell short there for the Valhalla Valkyries, but definitely two strong picks that I think the Valks could feel confident re-approaching.
Right.
Granted, though, with Jade Dragon solidifying that Tiamat, given the performance that Hurricane had in Game 1, definitely a concern here for the Valkyries.
Mercury ban over the Tiamat ban, yes or no? Do you agree with it?
Yes.
Yes?
I think you have to ban Sam's Mercury. It's just, there's just no questions asked. It is just not worth allowing that pick to go through for him. And the Odin response, though, from the Valkyries...
I think you had to do it, right? There's no way you let Fine get that back-to-back games.
I don't think you necessarily have to take Odin that early on in a draft, though, Dolson. I think the primary concern here is that Jade Dragons, when they've been taking Odin, it has largely been at that third pick or later spot.
Right.
And the reason being is that you don't want to reveal to the enemy team, like, hey, we're going to have this giant AoE to lock you inside of. And maybe if the Valhalla Valkyries choose to follow this up with a Humbat selection of their own so that we could see the Watery Grave, the Odin Cage, and that Fear No Evil kind of chained together, as well as get a nice jungle strip away pick from Sam there, and maybe even something that's a little bit easier for Johnny to try and be more effective with in team fights.
And there is still some solo lane priority there for Fine OK as well. Obviously, the Odin has done wonders for this team. Osiris, Kabrakan, and Gilgamesh are the three other picks he's played, at least in the last 6 games. Osiris, his third most played god, just behind King Arthur and Kulkullen. Uber for Panda Cat. You know what? I'm gonna admit this fully. You know how we would do like Zardomus for Zapman and Artemis? I nearly did Panda Cat and Uller, and decided to
Pooler?
Oh, see, I would have emphasized it the wrong way. I would have gone too long on the U, and it would have been bad, I think. So I'm gonna move right on top.
I can't even figure out where that was going, but we're gonna brush over it anyway.
We should.
Trust me on that.
My brain worked in a mysterious way there, and I'm glad that we can move on from it. Talk about lockdown though in the duo lane. Uller and Ymir for Panda Cat and Mike respectively. Kill pressure may be at an all-time high.
For sure, and not only that, but the Kuzumbo Apollo selection choices the Valhalla Valkyries have opted for here. The clear could definitely be strong, don't get me wrong, between the Nene, the Sumo Slam, and Apollo's passive in general, with that so beautiful, could definitely be a little bit more problematic here for Polar Bear Mike and Panda Cat if they're not careful with their positioning. Largely just want to look out for that Sumo Slam. It can be a decent chunk of damage throughout that early laning phase. However, important to know, Ymir, if there's one thing that he is great at, it is controlling characters that rely on dashes for escapes and initiation. So Valhalla Valkyries potentially going to be a little bit more restricted than they were bargaining for with these top 3 drafts so far.
And I think some good bans from the Jade Dragons on the back end there with some mid laners being taken off the table. It's an on her hover. This would be wishful thinking, I think, for the Valkyries if you're going to go double hunter when you already have an Odin there. Depending on what you lock in moving on, I think this makes a lot more sense. I think, you know, if Zeros is going to put himself in a position, specifically on the Morrigan, but now maybe on the Giannis, where you can make some of these plays, keep things interesting in some of these fights, maybe it's a good pick for him.
I think the only catch for me here with this Giannis is that there's clearly strong disengage. I think that that's something that could definitely benefit the Valhalla Valkyries in Game 1. A lot of those instances that went south for them, if they just had a stronger means of escape, like a through space and time can provide, maybe those engagements wouldn't have gone as immediately south as what we saw. But even then, Giannis, with this current composition, I'm just not sure that the Unstable Vortex and an Apollo are really the follow-up that you would desire off of the current control that Odin and Kuzumbo would be able to provide. It just seems a little bit haphazard here for the Valhalla Valkyries. Again, just another relatively high execution composition that they're trying to opt for.
Look, the Valkyries, they seem to like these types of compositions. Let's give ourselves a high potential, a high ceiling, but the floor can sometimes be low on drafts like this. And it seems, I think, to your credit there, Taco, to your point, that's kind of what we're getting at here. The second most played god for Final K out of the Soul Lane has been this Kulkullen at 9% of his total games played. I've been on the Kulkullen, and we'll get to see it once again. And then the Fenrir is there as well, so I think it's safe to assume Kulkullen solo for Final K, Fenrir in the jungle for Sanford Soccer, Ymir then in the duo lane for Polar Bear Mike. Plenty of pressure now for the Jade Dragons.
Seems as though we might be looking at an Apollo jungle situation here. I'm assuming that Neath could be intended for Zeros. Could also potentially be Johnny looking to rock Giannis in the jungle, or even Odin in the jungle. But either way, this is definitely a very niche type of composition here for the Valhalla Valkyries.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm not going to lie, Dawson, it almost feels like they're kind of just throwing darts at a board, and whatever it lands on, like that's just the direction that they're going to try to go with. I'm just not fully sold on them actually making this type of execution work.
So, Giannis will be for Zeros in the mid lane. I guess, Apollo in the jungle, we saw that more like at the end of Season 7, if I'm remembering correctly. I think the then Renegades and now Bolt's roster really liked that pick. You can send a World Weaver flying from the duo lane, dunk down on there with an Apollo. Maybe you get some early picks rolling here for this Valkyries team. I think if nothing else, Taco, you have to admire the creativity of this Valkyries team. Again, it's high execution, right? They're not making it easier on themselves. The ceiling is at a high, because if you can execute a composition like this, you can win the game.
Creativity is a fun way to describe it.
I'll be nice.
I just can't help but notice that.
Are we good cop, bad copping the draft right now?
I mean,
nice caster,
pretty
mean
much.
caster.
I'm supposed to be the toxic one anyway. So Fenrir, though, like the Brutalize just has such an easy follow-up. Whenever you look at the gods like Apollo and Kuzumbo, a really easy way to force the Mesmerize. I'm just not really seeing any sort of fluidity here with this Valhalla Valkyries composition. To cut it short, Dave, I honestly think we're looking at another 25 minutes or less match here.
So I think that means you have a lot of confidence in what the Dragons are bringing to the table.
Their draft is just much easier when it comes to reinitiation, when it comes to just outright initiation, and even with the mobility that's been provided here for Giannis and Apollo, I just can't really see where it comes together for damage output that's going to be enough to take down the likes of Kulkullen, Ymir. Even the Tiamat with all that damage mitigation could be problematic.
Yeah,
here.
Could be a squishier composition this time for the, it is a squishier composition for the Valhalla Valkyries this time around. Could be for the Dragons as well, depending on how this Fenrir wants to build. But I think I'm on your side here, Taco. I think that the Jade Dragons from top to bottom have built a draft that could work for them. But hey, Season 8 of the SPL is full of surprises. Maybe the Valkyries can turn this one around in game number 2.
Some interesting drafts out of these two teams onto it. Now, I was kind of looking more towards the Giannis jungle. I thought that would have been a little bit more fun to see, but no, Johnny's going to go with the Apollo jungle, kind of a little bit of a throwback here, Handy Man. Now, one thing I will call the S-Cat on, they said Pooler here for Panda Cat's Uller. Well, Pooler belongs to Paul.
Does it?
I would say so.
It begins with a P, so what's the problem, right?
But do you have two? You can't have two Poolers in the league. Or maybe they got to fight for it now. They got to have their 1v1 for it now.
There's also a Breznov in the league too, technically.
That's fair. That's fair onto that one. But
I will say, what the desk is saying, I kind of agree with. It's going to be an awkward draft. It's been a bit of an awkward draft from Valhalla Valkyries. I can tell they're trying to... Look at it this way. Jade Dragons just won Phase 1, right? They are the top of the league, technically, coming into this Phase 2. And Valhalla Valkyries, for many reasons, not just Ping, are at the bottom of the league right now. So trying to do something different, trying to throw a curveball at Dragons makes sense to me. I think it's tricky, though, with this composition of how this is going to function. A lot of escapability, and there's going to have to be a lot of these global ultimates used on multiple of the same target to try and provide some pressure as we look at pressure in the duel lane.
That's an ouch right there. Raffer takes about half his health, and no Sunder for Mike this time around. He's up for the blink, and Zeros is not going to find anywhere out. Sam makes an early rotation through, and the brutalizes enough damage. Now Johnny's got to be careful because he's trying to fight into a minion wave still here. Sam will be able to heal up. Unchained comes through. It's going to be a good reads, and Johnny will dash through him to secure the kill, but Hurrywin will think twice about jumping into that jungle.
Oh, baby, I ain't queuing rank tonight. That's what I'm saying, because there's going to be so many Apollos in the game, if that's what you can see happen there. Honestly, Johnny played that very well under the circumstances of how that played out. He knew the amount of damage he could do with the moves to just get on in there and scoop underneath Sam for Soccer. Against 2 as well in mid lane with a full minion wave. That is not something I expect you to try and do at home, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's not the easiest play to pull on the level of ping he's probably experiencing right now. So props to him onto that one. We're gonna be seeing all of these Apollo jungles. We're gonna be seeing Odin every game. I mean, let's face it, we talk about that. Odin's gonna be popping in every single game. And pretty much outside of that, I think Fenrir is still going to be the popular one. He seems to be one of the #1 contested picks right here into the jungle. And Sam getting that early lead is big for him, but a nice shutdown from Johnny.
Yeah, and as you say about picks and stuff, I think the biggest thing is, like, what picks don't get banned religiously in that first phase? And they're the ones that you're starting to see a little bit more of everyone going to. And the Fenrir is the one that you're talking about being a contested pick. It really is down to, well, all these other picks are getting taken off the table, and this is one of the first ones left open that has some room for maneuver. Not saying that every game, though, but it is very flexible, the support role jungle specifically.
We are going to see the Sunder onto Mike, but Rafford doesn't really have the follow-up to go through, and so he'll get the push onto Panda Cap. Panda's not worried about that. He'll hold on to his beads and get a nice axe toss right after and put a little bit of poke back right at them. So Mike, safe for now. Still has that blink on cooldown, though, for another 25 seconds, but it looks like Hurwin's looking for an early gank here at this purple buff. Don't think he got spotted anywhere. There is a ping on the map there. Most likely Mike trying to give him a signal as to what they're looking for. Freeze off the mark. Emil going to take a little bit of poke, and he'll have to backflip away.
And with that, the purple buff should see the pressure relieved, just because the jungler was over here and Johnny and Zero's doing the red buff too. So them being close enough around. I like the idea from Dragons, though. Try and pin some maneuver on that left-hand side. If Mike finds the freeze there, could have been a bit of a different story. So far, though, the gold differential between the two, though, it's starting to stretch already. It's about 800, 900 gold already in favor of the Jade Dragons early on. Sure, 400 of that gold will come from that first blood, but the rest is being mounted up elsewhere.
And this is kind of the same situation they were in last time, now minus the first blood, giving them that extra little boost, as Jade Dragons have just been farming more efficiently across the board than the Valkyries have in this early game.
Yeah, and when you look at the experience chart, it doesn't really show it there, but you're just showing the sharing camps a little bit more effectively to get that gold up as well. Take into account, though, with how this one plays out as the game goes on, I am worried about what we see really Valkyries do in terms of engagements. Who's going to be the initiator? For the most part, it's mainly Odin on the squad, or maybe some use out of the Kuzenbo. Kuzenbo, for my liking, is more a secondary engage or a disruptor on some of these engages, and could be a big game for Rafa here to find his ultimate, to hit the right targets at the right time, especially while Sam doesn't have beads online. That could come into play.
I mean, what better disruption than the Watery Grave? Probably one of the most disruptive abilities in the entire game. It feels, when you get caught in the middle, it feels impossible to get away from that.
But not only that, it's also impossible for your team to predict which direction the enemy's going to go, unless you put them against the wall. So it's great at disrupting fights, but I wouldn't say it's great for setting good kills.
Let's see, fine, okay. Just here into the soul lane box now, but Sam is looking for blood onto Johnny, and Johnny's pretty low in mana right now. Sam looking for an Unchained, but he's not going to get that cooldown up in time for it. And Seb will look for a potential blue buff invade here. Final K going to rotate over, and Ducky's got nothing he can do about it. He just has to watch on the ward as his blue buff goes the way of the enemy.
And that's just good work from Sam in the jungle there, recognizing that Johnny, if he gets caught in these early stages, there's definitely windows to get aggressive. But, as we mentioned there, he does at least have that mez to get himself out of some danger from the brutalized combo. If it's going to get used on that time and time again, it opens up windows elsewhere. Zero's just slipping danger there.
Must be nice to be able to just walk through walls like that.
Up in the sky, though. Apollo's up there right now, and Johnny just went in.
Dunking down on Johnny to get the beads. Neathol comes through
and
hits Sam for Soccer. And now he's going to be taken down against the rotation from Zeros. Through space and time is good to rotate them through Hurwin, trying to get some damage on, but Zeros is in danger. Luckily, he's got another portal to walk right through. I said danger, but it's a Giannis who just used ult. He's in no trouble at all.
Okay, this is going to be one of those games now where it's not a surprise with the comp that Valkyries are drafted here. It's called the rope-a-dope more than anything else. You look left, and I'm going right. Then someone comes right to left at the same time. You're like, which target do I go on? Panda nearly got the kill at the tail end of that onto Giannis, but that worked out so well. Johnny's gank, funny enough, on that red buff invade was absolutely crazy at first, but when you look where he landed, the follow-up damage that came through from the Neath with the World Weaver and the through space and time combined in an avenue that paid off very well for the Valkyries there.
And I don't think Sam intended to take that World Weaver. That looked like that was going the way of Hurwin. I think Mike wanted to step in, but that disruption from Johnny just made it to where he couldn't intercept that ult, and because of it, Sam just gets blown up.
And that's just going to cause more of a problem now for Dragons when they get aggressive. They've got to be wise to the fact that we will see the World Weaver. We will see that through space and time fired through the jungle. And trying to keep an eye on both of those coming in and blocking the right shots is going to be the name of the game for the Dragons in the early game.
Runic Shield, the first item online for Sam for Soccer. A bit of an unusual first item out the gate.
Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, survivability is really the name of the game for him here. If you can get more rotations off for the most part by surviving these engagements and resustain back up in the jungle, it will allow him some effectiveness in this game.
Well, Rapper is going to be walled off back towards his tower. Ducky not going to get a blue buff yet again. He's going to feel the wrath of the enemy team and not allowing him to have it. Sam's going to be forced to use the Ragnarok. So that way he doesn't take too much after the follow-up from the World Weaver. Final K is in a little bit of danger here. The leap is good, but he gets the transformation. Ooh. The shell might be enough, but Johnny is waiting in the sky, trying to find it. Root comes through. Warcry as well. How is he finally going to go down onto that one? I thought he was going to make it out of there.
Oh, the wall!
The wall! Out of Polar Bear Mike. Johnny caught in the midst of it. Hurrywin picks up the first kill up for his team in the fight, but now Sam is back off a fresh respawner from the fountain. And now Ducky is on the run. Hurrywin's going to chase him to the depths.
This has become, again, J-Mac, another game of crazy fights in the jungle. Portal usage from Valkyries. But I'm enjoying it right now. Valhalla Valkyries here are competitive in this one, although some of these engagements can come back to haunt them. Big fight on that right-hand side, though, all focused on Sam to begin with. Forcing Sam's Ragnarok defensively, opened up that window to get the pick onto Fine OK, who nearly survived. But then Sam comes back from base after being able to recall, comes back to the fight and turns it on his head, and then manages to strip away some jungle farm from Valhalla Valkyries' Johnny as well. Look at the gold lead, though. Still 2K.
Hurrywin up a little bit in experience here over Zero. So we look at the graphs, about 1,300 experience, 2,500 gold, however. I think it's kind of the big one this early on for the Dragons, picking up a pretty nice lead for themselves despite the skills being even.
Yeah, look at the net worth more importantly. There are 4 members of the Dragons above their counterparts here. And for the most part, it's actually Johnny in the jungle with the highest net worth at this stage of the game. Mainly down to the kills, I want to say, more than anything else that's really allowed him to extrapolate that bit of a lead there, or at least a bit of farm over the rest of his team. But with the rotations from Zeros, the rotations coming out from the rest of the team, they are falling behind in terms of gold and worth.
I mean, just look at the 1,100 gold difference between the mid laners. But hold that, fine, okay. Gonna use the ultimate. He's gonna get a nice transformation to get away from the spear talk. He's gonna keep going in. Has the Warcry. Will use it. Needs one more basic, and he'll manage to find it against 3. Now he's on full run. Johnny not gonna find quite enough damage yet. Zeros will though with one more basic through the wall. He'll clean up the kill on the Fine OK. But Fine getting one in the midst of 3.
Yeah, it's a very good play for Fine OK to find the kill there. It was 2v1 with the 3rd man rotating of Zeros to secure the kill. In favor of Valkyries, though, for my liking, because I still think that even if Odin does get behind, and if we see Ducky fall off with this Odin, still going to be effective in the fight, so I'm staying alive and causing problems.
No beads on for Zeros, and that's a free pick for Sam for Soccer. Hurrywin will get the last hit after the Ragnarok is used, and Panda Cat again, another 2-level lead over Emmeline, pushing him into the tower. Almost takes him out there, but Panda Cat doesn't have the damage with the Axel. He's just trying to bait something out, and in fact, he's just waited long enough for Sam to show up, and the Brutalized will make sure to clean up the kill.
Apollo in the sky, though. What's his target going to be? Should be Sam, and will be Sam. Gets the turnaround kill, so not complete terrible situation there for Valhalla Valkyries in the left-hand lane. Problem is, though, is the Ul versus Neath matchup. It's kind of how it goes.
Not looking so fun for Emilitu right now, as he is just... He's been under tower both games. I don't think he's had a chance. Once these supports rotate out, Emil just lives under tier 1 tower.
I do want to point out Panda Cat's build this time round as well. We've seen a lot of attack speed builds from Panda Cat so far. Not many items or stacking items involved in this. This time round, though, we see the Transcendence for the power spikes, the ability usage, and the Jotun's Wrath, which is so much better now. Penetration, as well as the extra power it got given just recently. It's going to allow him to have these rotations up even more often.
PBM is just sitting in Johnny's jungle, trying to take farm. Now, Johnny got the main Harpy of that first camp, and ended up losing on the bottoms on those. Now he's got to delay his back yet again, because PBM is still just sitting in the forefront. Meanwhile, Johnny also has gone for a stacking item here, rushed that Transcendence for his first item.
I think that makes sense too. The cooldown reduction is going to help him out a bit. The extra sustain for being able to stay in the sky with across the skies for longer. As Emilito under pressure, he's dead.
Yeah, there's no chance he makes it out of there. Another quick rotation for Sam make sure they can net themselves another kill. Through space and time expended to try and get him out of danger, or more than anything, just rotate back over to hold this lane. It's just starting to spiral, maybe a little out of control here for the Valkyries.
A little bit, yeah, because what I'm seeing most of the time is there's a lot of play around Zeros and Johnny in the jungle so far. Both of them involved in a lot of these scrappy engagements we've seen for the picks. And because of these through space and times getting fired off by Zeros, he's looking elsewhere on the map and falling behind in farm. All the while, Horrywind, who's not had to make many rotations here, has just been able to just free farm almost in this mid lane and not have to worry.
Meanwhile, Ducky on this Odin is just trying to, more than anything, keep FineOK at bay. World Weaver comes out on a PBM. He'll blink away to make sure that he doesn't take too much after the follow-up stun. But FineOK, a little bit of danger, jukes out the unstable Vortex, catches off to the side of it, and is now looking for even more. Hurrywind on the rotation as well. FineOK trying to take down Johnny. Johnny's gonna manage to get up into the sky just in time, but Zeros didn't have that same luxury. A triple knockout through. Johnny dunks back down into the middle of all of them. Brutalized not enough because of the Aegis. He has the Aussie passive, trying to fight back in, gets a nice double med, but that's gonna be the end of the line for Johnny.
Crazy fight in the jungle again. That was Ducky initiating on Polar Bear Mike that turned into a fight on FineOK. FineOK just ran away, bought time, and then the rest of his team went, hey, we are here, turn this, and that's exactly what we saw happen. Dragons playing around at the right moment so far in this game, answering back the Valhalla Valkyries. We're doing a good job, honestly, of trying to force skirmishes in the jungle and catch Dragons lacking. But the problem is, Dragons have answered the call every single time.
Oh no, Panda Cat, just leave him alone, my man. You're between the towers at this point.
Keep going.
He's not going to get it. I mean, if you're an Imlito fan you're playing, like, please just leave him alone, guys, just for once. But if you're a Dragons fan, you're like, dude, just dive as Phoenix at this point. I mean, he might as well. He's got 2.5 levels up onto him, make that pretty much as close to 3 as you can get for it, and he is just not letting off the gas pedal in that duo lane.
And with that, now the gold differential has stretched massively for these engagements, though. That's the biggest problem I'm seeing here. 6,500 gold at 13 minutes in. It has been a scrap fest, sure, but Dragons are taking the victory here so far. I'm worried about defense as well, of like exactly how they're going to defend here. It's going to be a lot around the Odin ring and cages. Although objective-wise from Valhalla Valkyries is a blessing here. Their secure, well, rather not secure, but rather burst of objectives is very, very high with this double Hunter composition.
They had a Fafnir, it'd be perfect, but unfortunately that got banned away, specifically from PBM in the picks and bans phase, so they had to opt with something else. We'll see how this Kuzenbo works for Raffer. The Umoja just died. I think that's the easiest way, is the Umoja just got caught out every single fight and ended up not really getting much value for him. We'll see if maybe this Kuzenbo can do more for him.
But the problem is now is how they defend against this Gold Fury, because Dragons have already pulled it.
They're going to start it up. Raffer waiting in the wings, but a jump in by Sam. He's going to pick up Raffer and drop him into the middle of all of it through space and time. Clips through in the Water Grave as well. A reset onto the Fury temporarily. Raffer's going to go through the portal. Dragons do get the Fury. And they're still looking for Raffer, but those portals give him just a little too much speed for now. But now everybody's pincering over, including Johnny, through the skies. Aegis by Panda Cat.
Nice.
Mez is good, and the Vital Basic will take him down. Ducky's rotated as well. Gets the cage, but it's not going to be enough to save Johnny. Hurrywind is here with the spin. Blast back into the flying stance to look for some more damage onto Ducky, but there's another portal waiting in the wings. But again, Raffer delaying more than anything, able to keep himself far from the fight and keep Sam out of it.
So Gold Fury goes down there, Dragons take that, sure. Raffer escapes, Panda gets greedy with a chase because out of position from the rest of his team, gets punished, but still the Dragons find 2 kills for Panda's death off the back of it. Then the red buff as well, well, an attempted red buff I should say on the invade there too, is just allowing Dragons to continue the pace of this game. And all the while, by the way, Hurrywind has slowly crept up to 4-0 and 4 in this game, and his build is coming along nicely, a whole item ahead of that of Zeros in the mid lane so far, and a just under 3 level lead for him too. This is becoming more of a problem now for the Valhalla Valkyries, because Dragons want to keep running it down at them. As soon as they get the objective, they want to keep fighting because they're winning so far.
Sims did 3/4 of Zero's health just from the elite and then the brutalize immediately afterward. And we're talking about a 404 onto Hurrywind. 7-3 right now for Sam for Soccer on this Fenrir. He has been putting in some work on this assassin.
And I actually really love his pickup of itemization here so far too. Sure, the Runic Shield was kind of a questionable, like, why is he going for this one? But the Witchblade pickup here, great. Mobility, physical defense on this item too, and more importantly, attack speed reduction, which is something these hunters love to use. Very effective in this game, will keep him up and around more often, and also the cooldown reduction, you're never going to complain to have Ragnarok up a little bit more often.
You never complain with an extra bit of cooldown reduction, especially if you weren't really looking for it. It's just, oh, hey, I just happened to get a little bit more of it online for him. So Sam for Soccer still pushing forward with his team. Polar Bear Mike in the enemy jungle, yet again, kind of where he's been all game, almost all set.
One credit to where it's due, though. Johnny is still ahead in farm over Sam in the jungle, but you can see the differential between the score lines between the two with how effective it's been at the moment. Dragons, though, starting to realize they should just start to push this lead further here. Grouping in the mid lane, they're leaving Neath on that left-hand side. All they have to do is worry about the World Weaver, and even sending Fine OK over here, because Tier 1's down on the right-hand side is probably the right option to keep him at bay.
Quick beads out of Zeros, and an Aegis trying to delay. Ragnarok won't get the damage, but the basic afterward will. Sam able to pick up Zeros and a Tier 1 tower. Now Raffer's caught on the wrong side of the wall, stunned by the axe toss. Panda Cat's going to take him down with Sam, and that'll be a double kill for the jungler. And Ducky just has to sit by and watch as his Tier 2 tower is being massacred by the dragons.
Here we
and Fine
go.
OK dealing with Emil.
He's going to do 2v1.
2v1. I mean, oh, there's Johnny on top of it right there. Fine, okay. Now we'll fight in with the Thorns as well. So into the double hunter. He's not too worried about this one, though he maybe should be. Warcry is good, but Johnny's got a little bit extra on the World Weaver. No 2v1 for Fine, okay, this time. But all that while they bought time for the Phoenix to go down.
I actually think Dragons could have ended there if they were to. I guess they were a little bit worried about Zero's respawn. But the left-hand side, the Valkyries will get that left-hand Tier 1 and the Tier 2 tower. They lose a Phoenix, though, in response to that at the moment. And you can start to see this game is getting away from the Valhalla Valkyries. A lot of people expected that with picks and bans, and it would. But at the moment, it really is becoming that now. The Dragons are in full control and really choosing their engagements. You can tell when Final K is happy to box out 2 there, you realize he's not really concerned. Sure, he'll lose the Tier 2 tower. Maybe he loses his life, but maybe he gets a highlight reel play.
Potentially onto it. Most importantly for them, though, they get the Phoenix off of the back of that fight. He kept those hunters busy long enough, forced Johnny's ultimate out, forced him to lead to his ultimate as well. So we got 2 ultimates for Tier 1, Tier 2, Phoenix, and a couple of kills before that. I think Final K's happy with that trade.
Oh, for sure. I think more importantly, Horrorwind's just enjoying himself this game. I wish I was a Tiamat in this game. Not going to lie, you've got kind of the freedom for the most part of like, who's really going to go on you? You're going to have an Odin jump on you? Don't worry, I'll probably be able to leap out of that anyway, or take it to you with the build I've got. Very effective play so far from the Dragons in this one. And we're really looking at what Valkyries can do to get back into it. Maybe it's an objective steal. Maybe it's a rush when Dragons aren't looking at one of these objectives. That's where a window could be. But at the moment, they're not going to get a chance to do that around the FG because Dragons recognize here they've got the opportunity to do so.
Oh, it's going to be a leap in for Sam onto Emma. It's going to get the beads and the backflip. Wall a little off the mark, but Sam is still going to dive in. That route is not going to do anything to a Fenrir. Ducky frozen out by Mike. And the triple leap on top of the Odin. Ducky has no chance of living that engagement.
I think Dragons love to scrap when they can, and like when you can just deathball the way they are doing now, it makes it a lot easier for themselves. Valhalla Valkyries obviously behind, just trying to play the map effectively, having Johnny do some split pushing, keep getting the farm, put the pressure maybe on Phoenixes eventually. But all the while, Dragons are just doing their due diligence of what they need to do to find the win.
Johnny got a dunk in, but the Water Grave ended up pushing Panda Cat away through space and time, off the mark. Panda Cat on the run. Johnny has to use the meds just to try and delay the inevitable as Hurrywin picks him up. Panda Cat's still sitting under the tower, and it's only Raffer left on the map, and that's a beautiful wall out of Mike to stop him right in place. Raffer falls down. Double kill for Hurrywin to extend that slash line to 6-0-7.
Just want to mention there as well, you saw them through space and time get fired. Did you ever see Zeros, by the way?
No.
Yeah, you know why?
Sam.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Sam was waiting in the jungle for Zeros rotated in, took him down again. And now, over to the right-hand side here we go with the Dragons, who are just playing this one really well. No surprises, though. When you look to picks and bans, a lot of people had question marks of how this composition would work. Johnny has done well on the Apollo. I've got to give credit where it's due. And I think, honestly, in mid lane, Zeros did a good job in the early game of these rotations, with the be honest, to make this competitive from the Valkyries. But as the game went on, Dragons just realized we group as 5, and there's not much you can do about it.
I don't even think they need a group as 5. I think Sam just recognized, I just sit on you. What do you do about it? What is a Giannis able to do when a Fenrir takes over half his health with just the leap?
Completely agree. And now with that, it's all on Dragons just falling back to base, spending this gold in hand that they've got, escalating their builds a little bit more. And with 2 Phoenixes down, the writing's kind of on the wall in this one.
21 minutes, 12,500, or about close to 11,500 gold for the Dragons. 2 Phoenixes down. And only one tower left on the map standing up for the Valkyries in that left side Phoenix. That middle Phoenix about to respawn for them, but I don't imagine that one will stay up for very long, as Jade Dragons will push onto this Oni Fury and continue to apply that pressure across the map with those minions that'll spawn.
Yeah, not surprised though, J-Mac. I think coming into this, a lot of people expected this would be the state of affairs today. Dragons looking to close out at 2-0, and honestly, from a Dragons fan point of view, bounce back a little bit over the last couple of performances where they've struggled. This is definitely the right timing, if you're a Dragons fan, to have them go against the Valkyries and go, hey, this is what we can do as a team when we play together. This is when we're all on the same page of how good we can look, and can we transition this into other games in the league the rest of the year.
Just as quickly as it respawned, Mid Phoenix goes down, freeze onto Ducky. He'll be taken down to a quick half health and ends up walking the wrong way. Has a cage, but the basic is able to extend just right past it. Sanford Soccer takes down Ducky. It's only 4 left to fight against the Dragons in their own throne room. Panda Cat's gonna get a little bit of damage onto Raffer, but not much more beyond there. They're waiting for the minions to pour through before they can continue this fight.
Yeah, Oni minions coming down mid lane and right hand side, but it's all gonna be from the mid lane here. Little greedy from Dragons the way they're playing this, but they should be able to do it, all being well. Just gonna be careful about clumping up against these carries here. And I'm glad they're falling back, if I'm honest, because it's a little bit disrespectful to try and 4v5 in the throne room. The Titan at the moment will still be relatively, well, not healthy, I'd say, with all these towers being down, but it will make an impact in the game. And we've seen plenty of teams throw at those moments.
They're going to go and clean up the last bird on the map. That left side one will fall just as quickly as they walked into it. And now again, back to the now 5v5, as Ducky has been gone for so long, he's been able to respawn. Johnny takes a little bit of damage, has to use the bead. Mike Blink ults on top of Johnny, forces the Aegis. Hurrywin dives in on top. Johnny isn't going to be much longer for this world, as Hurrywin cleans him up with one more basic on the back end of it. Raffer stunned out, and Polar Bear Mike picks up Zero. Emily just to go into the fountain. They're able to get one into the fountain with them. Final K takes a nice little trip, but Ducky caught off by the wall. Panda Cat takes him down. Only 2 left to stand against them. And all these minions, Emily 2's not going to live long enough to see the end of this one. He'll get the grayscale, and Raffer will as well, as they clean up all 5, and the Titan 2-0 quickly for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, I have a feeling, J-Mac, the Dragons knew that it was your first cast today, because they definitely put you through the paces at the end there too, just to make sure you were warmed up with how the games are going to go. No surprises, though, with how the result ends up being at the end of that set for the most part. I will say there was signs of life from the Valkyries there. I don't think the Apollo was a terrible pick. I think he did pretty effectively. But in terms of the composition as a whole, back to the drawing board.
They played about as well as they could, but unfortunately the Jade Dragons just played it a little bit better. We're going to take it to a quick break. When we come back, the desk will finish off this set.
A quick one here for the Jade Dragons, and they complete the 2-0 over the Valhalla Valkyries. Finally get themselves a win here in phase number 2. And here's the good news for Mike and the rest of the Jade Dragons. Because of the Alienware gear they loaded into their game, and we could watch them frag in perfect picture quality. And all the rest of the pros are playing on the Alienware gear, and you at home can play on Alienware gear as well. If you want, go on over to smitegame.com/Alienware, use code SMITEAW, and check out all the sweet deals that we've got there. And then make sure to follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware as well. So thanks to Alienware for sponsoring us this year in the SPL. Taco's still with me to break this one down. Taco, you were actually pretty spot on. We all 10 were locked in. You looked at both teams and you said this could be another 20-minute game, and it came near close.
Sometimes it's just a little bit more black and white with composition. I think the Jade Dragons just did an excellent job in terms of combating a lot of the global pressure that the Valhalla Valkyries were trying to kind of enhance their initiations with. But Sam for Soccer on the Fenrir, very strong controlling force that brutalized just a little bit too problematic for Raffer. Raffer having no real escape away from the Fenrir because it's not even like Watery Grave with Fenrir being knock-up immune. Can't really escape. A lot of burst damage as well out of this Fenrir, and it just felt like Sam, Mike, Fine OK, they were all providing such a flawless front line that even where there were instances where I think some of that global utility came into effect pretty heavily for the Valhalla Valkyries. Ultimately, once it approached the mid-game period, it was just too much control from the Jade Dragons and too much pick dependency from the Valhalla Valkyries composition.
I love that play from Hurrywin there where he drops some damage down, sends the ranged over the wall, and then turns and continues the rest of the fight because he knows he's going to get the kill anyway. I think you'll look at the post-game stats in a minute after we're done watching Hurrywin tear the Valkyries apart. You'll see that Johnny had an okay KDA throughout a little bit of the game, and it looked like the Apollo was able to dunk in, find those kills. It was really all Johnny, wasn't it? I mean, Ducky and Zeros had 1 and 2 kills apiece, but Johnny with 5. It looked like the Apollo was going to be able to keep pace, and we were kind of talking about this back in the green room. It's so weird where you get a draft where you have an Apollo, you have a Giannis, there's a World Weaver from Emilito. It still felt like the Jade Dragons were able to kind of out-rotate the Valkyries in this game.
Yeah, I think that for Johnny specifically, we saw a lot of really promising instances for him where the ping didn't really seem so much an issue as much as it was the fact that the Valkyries just weren't really able to translate any of the kills that they did get into real objective sieges. And having a double hunter composition, normally you would expect that they would have some kind of leverage when it came to the objective game, but ultimately those picks not actually being able to continue the ball rolling there. It's like the Valhalla Valkyries had just enough gas in the tank to get the 1, and then they're like, okay, maybe we can't keep going here.
Right.
And I guess with a double hunter composition, you just kind of have to be able to gas pedal a lot harder than what we actually saw from the Valhalla Valkyries. But It's not to say that the composition is entirely useless by any means. I know that I harped on the fact that it was like that, 20-minute fast pace.
Right.
But at the same time, when you have that much global dependency, you can definitely also turn things the other direction.
Absolutely, and the Jade Dragons happy for it. This one goes quickly. Couple back-to-back 20-minute games. Their updated standings here for you. The Jade Dragons back in the win column. Still a couple of losses, though, so they're working back up that table. While the Atlantis Leviathans and the Olympus Bolts find themselves at 3-0. Unfortunately, the Valkyries still searching for that first win here in Phase 2 of Season 8 of the SPL. We had a bunch of 3-game sets to start off the weekend, and then we've had some 2-0s back-to-back after that. I'll give you a brief moment to kind of touch on this one, Taco. We'll sink our teeth into it after the break. Solar Scarabs versus Camelot Kings. Do you think the next matchup, the final matchup of the weekend, could be interesting?
I think we could definitely see a 3-game series between those two.
Right? I think so, too. I think that the way the Scarabs play and the way they do sometimes play, they can show up and make things interesting against the Kings. Panda Cat now joins me for the post-game interview. Big winner from our first set of the day. Panda Cat, congratulations. Getting back into the win column here in Phase 2. How important do you think it was that you guys got the win here today? I imagine the tilt factor wasn't really all that crazy, but important to get back to your winning ways.
Oh, extremely. I mean, if we lost today, I think I would be taking a potential break from the league because losing 3 games in a row is just, how can we live that down?
Right, and I think it was Fine OK that tweeted you guys were considering roster moves, and those were serious, right? There were actual applicants, and you guys were considering dropping someone.
Yeah, I'm not going to hint at anybody, but I think the person who tweeted the actual tweet was the person we were planning on replacing, potentially.
That might be news to Fine OK, unfortunately. Let's reroute this back and some actual analysis here. It's been fun. I asked Mike a few questions about how the meta's been working in the support role. You've played a few different picks so far since the recent changes, Ullr, Artemis, Danza, Chiron. Is the Hunter pool kind of wide open at the moment in your eyes? It feels like we've seen a pretty healthy variety.
Yeah, I think with the changes, with the patch, I think a lot of the hunters are a lot more viable because the top-end hunters got some nerfs and just build paths are different and power specs are different. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more viable picks, and it's going to open up the meta a lot more than it was in the past couple seasons.
What is it? What was it was Izanami, or maybe it was even some of the Artemis plays we saw where it's just like 4 bow builds and then into something else there towards the end. Is that the way to go on your Hunter build?
For the I've done some testing, and you can almost consistently get to 100 stacks of Sword Bench, so it's like a 2200 gold item that gives you 230 power, so...
Gotcha, and looked good for you guys here today. Moving forward, you guys will have the Oni Warriors in your next matchup. It's a team that has had some struggles here and there. It's always a fun matchup to watch. You guys versus Neil and Vote there in the duo lane. How are you feeling about going up against them next?
I'm good. I mean, we're confident as usual. Win or loss, we're still confident as a team, and I think it's going to be a good set. That's all we can really hope for. I'm excited. I like to play against Neil a lot, former teammate, and he's a pretty cool guy. So.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. You are too, Panda Cat. Thanks for sitting down with me. Congrats on your win. Look forward to seeing you guys back in action here shortly. Everyone else at home, stick around. Big set to round out the weekend coming up next.